I've been speaking professionally for so many years, I'm often approached by people who would like some advice or mentorship as they begin their own speaking journey. Many of these people have disabilities, and some do not. So today, I'm recording this video with my tips and advice for how to get started on this career path. I've had some people over the years help me, so I wanted to record this video to share what I've learned, what I did when I got started, and how I've grown my speaking business over the years. I feel like this video is a great place to get started and give you some ideas on how to begin, as it covers the main questions I've received over the years. So if you still have questions by the end of this video, please email me at tasha@tashashu.com to talk about my one-on-one paid consulting service. So let's get started. My first recommendation when getting started with speaking is just choosing a topic. What do you want to speak about? It should be more than just, I want to tell my story, because there needs to be a why. Why should people care? What can you teach them or inspire them with specifically? What about your life or journey will resonate with people? Your speech needs to have an introduction, it needs to have key points with stories and tips, and a very obvious and powerful conclusion. Those are the basics of a good message. That leads to the second thing what you should think about. Who do you want to speak to? Are you hoping to get in front of young people or adults? Who needs to hear the message that you have to share? Next, you need to put together your message. Developing a speech that people are willing to pay money to hear takes a lot of preparation and practice. I have put countless hours into my message. Writing, rewriting, practicing, tweaking, adding, subtracting, getting feedback, taking constructive criticism. It is an ongoing process, and this takes time. And so don't be surprised if it takes a couple months to study, research, write, and prepare a message that will impact your audience. I continue to put many hours into refining my message, even after all these years. So if you're not sure where to get started with structuring an impactful message, go online and look for videos and resources on how to develop a good speech. There's many out there. And again, practice, practice, practice. My next piece of advice is to get out there and start speaking. The biggest thing I learned when I first started was that I had to start small and be humble, because very few are going to get in front of 1,000 people on their first try. You can dream big, but you do also have to start small. So think back to your target audience and try to think about how you can get in front of them in smaller settings. Those small audiences are where I learned what works and what needs to be changed. I was a part-time speaker from 2001 to 2007. Then I went full-time in 2007. But until about 2010, I took about any engagement that I could, just for the experience. So when you're first starting out, you'll most likely speak for free or for a reduced rate. Reach out to church groups and see if you can get some experience, as well as teachers, to see if you can speak to their classrooms or after-school clubs. There are also groups like Toastmasters that give good speaking practice when you're starting out. Now, my next recommendation is very important. You cannot just show up to these engagements and wing it. Too many people think all it takes to be a professional speaker is standing up and telling their story. I've had many people actually say to me, "Oh, how hard can it actually be? All you have to do is get up and say a few things." But it takes much more than that, especially if you want to speak to youth. Yikes, they will eat you alive if you're not prepared. And in my experience, I believe that adults are a lot easier to speak to and are a lot more forgiving and gracious. I've heard this from other professional speakers who have been doing this for many years. Youth are the hardest audience to speak to. Now, it's very rewarding, so don't get me wrong in this, but you have to go in with the knowledge, and you have to be prepared, and you have to know how to keep their interest. So remember that people who invite you to speak to their audience are putting their faith in you to have a good message. So you have to go prepared, and you have to take the responsibility seriously. Next, think about marketing yourself. Anytime you do a speaking engagement, make sure you're getting photos taken of you speaking, get photos taken of you speaking, and interacting with audience members. These don't have to be professional photos. Just have the event planner take some photos of you to start getting some images for your marketing. You should also get video footage of you speaking when you can, and collect testimonials from the event organizers and attendees. All of these are going to be important in your marketing materials. You also want to have a website and social media presence to help spread the word about what you're doing. Now, when I first started out, I created my own website and I ran all of my social media on my own. But today I have a team that helps me. They've helped me build my website and maintain my social media presence. To be effective on social media, you need to show up consistently and make sure you provide value and inspiration. Don't just promote yourself. Social media videos can also be a great way to connect with your audience and get your name out there for more speaking engagements. Now, as far as booking speaking engagements, this is also going to take some effort and work. Very rarely do speaking opportunities just fall in our laps. You can't just rely on your website and social media. Create a spreadsheet with where you want to speak and who you want to speak to. You're going to have to pick up the phone and make some phone calls. Send out emails to people you don't know. So I recommend writing out a brief script about who you are and why your message would be valuable to this audience. You're going to leave a lot of voicemails, and it's important to make time in your calendar for phone calls. I would plan on a few hours a day. This means you're going to have to get good at selling yourself and your message. The hardest part, this is the hardest part in the beginning, but you'll get better at this. My next tip is about referrals. As you do more and more speaking engagements, you'll hopefully start getting referrals to speak at other places. Word of mouth is absolutely critical in the speaking industry. So make sure that you maintain a good reputation as a speaker. This probably goes without saying, but always be on time, always be prepared, and always be professional. When you're easy to work with and always do good work, more opportunities will come your way. Now, I don't say all of this to intimidate you. When I started speaking, I was so intimidated by a lot of this stuff. I was overwhelmed when I went to speakers' meetings and thinking that I would never get there and it would be too much. So my last tip is that I recommend starting slow and doing one thing at a time. There's no way you can do all of this in a week. It takes dedicated time. There is a need for speakers, and it's absolutely worth it to help people, to share your message, and to see the impact of it in other people's lives who are hurting or struggling. But this is not a career that can be done half-heartedly. I can't sugarcoat it and tell you that it's going to be easy. If you want to be a professional speaker, this has to be taken seriously. Now, it's also going to require patience. That's my other tip, because there's a lot of established speakers out there who have already built their businesses from the ground up. So it takes time and patience and perseverance. It's not always glamorous. Doug and I work our tails off all year round to make this into a viable career. So as you go, keep in mind your mission and purpose, because if you're doing this to get rich, you're going to burn out. If you're doing this because you want to help people, you'll be able to put in the work to get there. That's why I do this, not for the money, but to make an impact in this world. So now, my next couple of tips are specifically for people who have disabilities and who would like to get into professional speaking. These two tips are things that you need to think about before you even get started on the tips I gave you earlier in order to be successful. But hold on if this does not apply to you, because I do have a few more tips at the end. First, if you have a disability, think about travel. Are you able to travel with your disability? Do you need a caregiver when you travel? If you do you have a caregiver that is able to travel with you? You don't have to travel as a speaker, because you can book events that are closer to home and speak once in a while. But if you want this to be a full-time job, you have to make a plan for how the traveling will work. That's the only way this will work. When you travel, make sure that you have reliable transportation. If you plan to fly to engagements, research what that process is like with your disability. Second, if you're going to be working as a professional speaker and you also receive Social Security disability benefits or Medicaid, it's really important for you to know if your income is going to disqualify you from receiving those benefits. If you make over a certain threshold in income, which that threshold varies state to state, you can lose your medical benefits and caregiver funding. Now, I always want to encourage people to work and do what fulfills them, regardless of ability or disability. But you have to know that working as a speaker means having a fluctuating income. You only get paid when you book and complete speaking engagements. So if you lose your benefits because you make over the income threshold in a year, can you still afford all your living expenses? I know many people with disabilities who are able to make enough speaking and not have to rely on government benefits, but it does take time to get there. And I also know that once you lose your benefits, it can be hard to get them back. Unfortunately, our system is backward in that it doesn't make it easy for people who have disabilities to work. But that's the reality. And I don't want to deter you by saying that, but I just want to make sure that you recognize these and answer these concerns. Again, I don't say these things to deter you from speaking because I would love to see more speakers. And I'm sure you have an awesome story to tell. It's such a rewarding profession. But if you want to do this as more than just a hobby, you have to think about travel logistics and you have to think about your disability benefits. These are the two things you need to figure out before you start anything else. I want you to be able to do this if this is your dream. So thank you for tuning into this video. I hope it was helpful to you as you begin your journey of possibly becoming a professional speaker. Email me at tasha@tashashu.com if you'd be interested in my consulting service, which does have a fee. If you're serious about doing this, I want to help you. And no matter what, I wish you the best. Thanks.